On the bustling streets of New York City, under the fading evening light, a young boy named Liam stood quietly on a corner. Dust covered his face, and his frail body trembled in the chilly air. With an outstretched hand, he hoped for spare change or leftover food. He had long learned to ignore the hunger gnawing at his stomach and the sting of dismissive stares. As Liam scanned the crowd, he spotted a well-dressed woman, Amelia. Her jewelry sparkled under the dimming sky. Steeling himself, Liam approached her. "Please, ma'am, could you spare some change? I'm hungry." Amelia recoiled, her face etched with disdain. "Don't touch me," she snapped. "This coat costs more than you'll ever earn." Her voice carried a sharpness that silenced the surrounding crowd. "I can work," Liam whispered. "Clean your car. Anything. Work? You're dirty, lazy, and probably a thief," Amelia shouted, her words cutting deeper than Liam's hunger. Tears welled in his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Suddenly, a commanding voice interrupted. "Enough." A man, tall and impeccably dressed, stepped forward. His name was Richard, and his presence silenced Amelia. "I was teaching him a lesson," Amelia stammered. Ignoring her, Richard turned to Liam, his expression softening. He pulled out a crisp bill and handed it to the boy. "Take care of yourself," he said. Liam's voice quivered as he accepted the money. "Thank you, sir." Richard's gaze lingered, a mix of concern and resolve. As he disappeared into the crowd, Liam felt a flicker of hope reignite in his heart. That night, Liam curled up under a bridge, clutching the crisp bill tightly in his trembling hands. The cold air bit at his skin, but a tiny spark of warmth flickered in his chest. For the first time in years, he dared to think beyond mere survival. As sleep eluded him, dreams of a fresh start whispered promises he had long forgotten. The next morning, the mouth-watering aroma of fresh bread led Liam to a bakery. The sight of golden loaves displayed in the window made his stomach ache with longing. Just as he reached for the door, a voice called out behind him. "Don't bother," said a girl about his age, wrapped in a tattered coat. Her face was smudged with dirt, but her sharp eyes glinted with experience. "They'll just call the cops the second they see someone like you." Startled, Liam turned. "Who are you?" "Chloe," she replied with a smirk. "And you're new to this, aren't you?" Liam hesitated. "I've been on the streets for a while. Not long enough to know where to go," Chloe said, folding her arms. "Come on, I'll show you." Intrigued and unsure, Liam followed her through the bustling streets. Chloe led him to a small food cart tucked away in a quieter part of the city. The vendor didn't even blink as Liam handed over some of his precious money for 2 sandwiches. Sitting by a fountain, Liam bit into his meal with relief. "Why are you helping me?" he asked between bites. Chloe shrugged. "Someone helped me once. Figured I'd return the favor. But don't get used to it. Out here, people will smile at you one moment and rob you the next." Days turned into weeks as Chloe took Liam under her wing. She taught him how to navigate the streets, pointing out safe spots to sleep and shortcuts to avoid trouble. Despite her tough exterior, Liam glimpsed moments of kindness in her, though she quickly masked them with sarcasm. Together, they survived in the shadows of a city that barely noticed them. One evening, as they waited near a park, Liam's heart skipped a beat. Across the street, he saw Richard, the man who had given him the bill, emerging from an office building. Liam's pulse quickened as he considered approaching him, but before he could move, he noticed Chloe slipping silently through the crowd. A glint of metal caught Liam's eye. Chloe was holding a small blade, her gaze fixed on Richard's wallet. "Chloe, don't," Liam whispered harshly, grabbing her arm just as she neared him. Chloe spun around, her face a mix of surprise and anger. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "We could take his wallet and eat for weeks." "He's a good man," Liam said firmly. "He helped me when no one else would." Chloe's eyes narrowed, but the determination in Liam's voice made her pause. With a sigh, she slipped the blade back into her pocket. "Fine," she muttered. "But don't expect people like him to save you again." Unbeknownst to them, Richard had noticed the commotion. He approached, his calm presence cutting through the tension. "Are you all right?" he asked Liam. Liam nodded, his voice steady. "Thank you for helping me before," he said. Richard smiled warmly. I've been looking for you. I wanted to make sure you were okay. For the first time in a long while, Liam felt seen. As Richard's words sank in, a glimmer of hope began to grow, promising that perhaps his life could change for the better. Richard gestured for Liam to join him on a nearby bench. The boy hesitated but eventually sat, clutching his worn jacket tightly. Richard studied him for a moment before speaking. "Why are you on the streets?" he asked gently. Liam shifted uncomfortably. "Life hasn't been kind," he murmured, avoiding Richard's gaze. Richard nodded, his expression tinged with understanding. "I've had my own struggles," he admitted. "My wife, Evelyn, controls everything. My money, my company. I suspect she's trying to poison me." Liam's eyes widened. "Poison you?" he asked, disbelief clear in his voice. Richard's tone dropped, carrying a weight that made Liam sit up straighter. "Every time I eat something she prepares, I feel sick. It's subtle, but it's there. I've been trying to find proof, but she's careful calculating. I'm trapped." A mix of fear and determination filled Liam's chest. "What can I do?" he asked. Richard's face softened. "You've already shown me that not everyone is out to take advantage. But I don't know how to move forward alone." Later that evening, Liam recounted Richard's story to Chloe as they huddled near a small fire in an alleyway. Her skepticism was immediate. "Rich people problems," she said dismissively. "Why should we get involved?" "Because he helped me," Liam insisted. "And I think he's telling the truth." Chloe sighed, her expression softening slightly. "Fine, but if we're doing this, we're doing it smart." Over the next few days, the pair began to shadow Evelyn discreetly. She exuded an air of cold authority, her every step calculated. Liam and Chloe noted her meetings with shady-looking individuals in high-end restaurants and private clubs. One evening, Chloe managed to overhear a conversation between Evelyn and a man in a dark suit. "The assets will be transferred to my account within the week," Evelyn said, her voice low but sharp. "He won't even see it coming." Chloe's heart raced as she relayed the information to Liam later that night. "We have to act fast," she urged. The next evening, armed with determination, they sneaked into Evelyn's mansion through a side gate Chloe had scouted earlier. The house was eerily quiet, its grandeur shadowed by the darkness. In Evelyn's study, they found a desk cluttered with papers. Among them were documents detailing her plans to strip Richard of his wealth. Liam snapped photos of everything, his hands shaking with adrenaline. Chloe kept watch near the door, her ears straining for any sound. When they finally slipped out into the night, their hearts pounded with both fear and triumph. The following morning, Liam handed the photos to Richard at a small park. Richard's hands trembled as he flipped through the images, his face pale. "This is it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You've given me a lifeline, Liam." Chloe, standing a few steps away, crossed her arms. "So, what now?" she asked bluntly. Richard straightened, a new determination gleaming in his eyes. "We confront her. But I need your help, both of you." Later that evening, Richard invited Liam and Chloe to his mansion. The air inside felt heavy, laden with tension. Evelyn entered the room, her sharp eyes narrowing as she took in the trio. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice dripping with disdain. Richard held up the incriminating photos. "This is everything, Evelyn. Your lies, your betrayal. It's over." Evelyn's face twisted with fury, but she quickly masked it with a cold smile. "And you think anyone will believe you?" she sneered. Her gaze flicked to Liam. "The word of a street rat won't hold up." Liam's jaw tightened, but he stood his ground. "Maybe not," he said evenly, "but the truth has a way of coming out." For a moment, Evelyn faltered. Then, in a fit of rage, she lunged toward Richard, her movements wild and desperate. Before she could reach him, Liam stepped between them, blocking her path. She shoved him aside, but her actions had already sealed her fate. At that moment, the sound of footsteps echoed through the room. Police officers, summoned by Richard earlier, entered swiftly. Evelyn's confidence crumbled as they approached, and for the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. As the officers led her away, Evelyn cast a venomous glare at Liam. "This isn't over," she hissed. When the house finally fell silent, Richard turned to Liam and Chloe. Gratitude softened his features as he spoke. "I couldn't have done this without you." Liam managed a small smile. "You gave me hope first," he replied. "This was just me returning the favor." Richard placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. "You've got a good heart, and if you're willing, I'd like to help you start over. Both of you." Liam glanced at Chloe, who raised an eyebrow but didn't protest. Turning back to Richard, Liam nodded. "We'd like that." As they stepped out into the cool night air, the weight of the past began to lift. For the first time in a long while, Liam felt a sense of freedom, a promise of better days ahead. That evening, as dusk settled over the city, Richard invited Liam to join him at his mansion. The opulent home loomed ahead, its grand facade shadowed by a sense of unease. Chloe followed close behind, her sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. She didn't trust easily, and the weight of what lay ahead made her tense. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Evelyn swept into the room, her presence as cold and commanding as ever. Her sharp gaze immediately honed in on Richard, then shifted disdainfully to Liam and Chloe. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice dripping with authority. Richard, his stance firm, held up the stack of incriminating documents Liam had uncovered. "This is the end, Evelyn. Your schemes, your betrayal, it's all here." For a fleeting moment, Evelyn's confident facade cracked. Her eyes darted to the papers, then back to Richard. But she quickly recovered, her lips curling into a sneer. "And you think anyone will believe you?" she mocked. "Who do you think they'll trust? Me, or the word of a street rat?" Her gaze flicked to Liam, her tone icy. "You don't belong here, boy." Liam stepped forward, his chin raised defiantly. "Maybe not," he said, his voice steady. "But neither do you. Your lies are over." Evelyn's composure shattered. With a furious scream, she lunged at Richard, her nails clawing for the papers in his hand. Richard stumbled back, but before she could reach him, Liam threw himself between them. Evelyn's fury turned on the boy, and she shoved him aside with surprising force. Liam hit the ground hard, but he quickly scrambled to his feet, his resolve unwavering. At that moment, the sound of footsteps echoed through the mansion. Evelyn froze as uniformed police officers entered the room, summoned by Richard earlier. The color drained from her face as realization dawned. "Evelyn Carter," one of the officers said firmly. "You're under arrest for fraud and attempted embezzlement." Evelyn's eyes darted wildly between Richard and the officers. "This is a mistake," she cried, her voice rising in desperation. "You can't do this to me." But the officers moved forward, their grips firm as they placed her in handcuffs. As they led her away, she turned one last venomous glare on Liam. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice filled with venom. When the room fell silent, Richard turned to Liam and Chloe, his expression a mixture of gratitude and weariness. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said, his voice sincere. Liam, still catching his breath, managed a small smile. "You believed in me first," he said. "I just returned the favor." Richard placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, his eyes warm with appreciation. "You have a good heart, Liam, and if you're willing, I'd like to help you start over." He glanced at Chloe. "Both of you." Chloe raised an eyebrow, her skeptical nature kicking in. "What's the catch?" she asked, crossing her arms. Richard chuckled lightly. "No catch. Just a chance for a new beginning. I have the resources to help you get off the streets, to build a future." Liam looked at Chloe, his eyes pleading. "We can trust him," he said softly. "He's different." After a long pause, Chloe sighed and shrugged. "Fine, but I'm keeping my guard up." Richard smiled. "Fair enough." In the weeks that followed, true to his word, Richard helped Liam and Chloe transition into a new life. He provided them with a safe place to stay and connected them with resources to help them rebuild. Liam, for the first time, enrolled in school, where he discovered a love for learning. Chloe, ever resourceful, began training for a job that suited her sharp instincts and quick thinking. Despite their new paths, the bond between Liam and Chloe remained strong. They often reflected on how far they had come, their shared experiences on the streets shaping a friendship built on resilience and trust. One evening, as they sat together on a park bench near their new apartment, Chloe broke the comfortable silence. "Do you ever think about her?" she asked, her tone neutral. Liam didn't have to ask who she meant. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but not with anger. I just hope she finds peace. Even people like Evelyn can't carry all that hatred forever." Chloe snorted. "You're too nice for your own good. You know that?" Liam grinned. "Maybe, but it's better than carrying bitterness around. We've got a fresh start. I don't want anything to weigh me down." Chloe nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Fair point. Guess I'll try to be a little more like you." Their laughter echoed softly in the night, a sound of hope and healing. Together, they had faced darkness and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the light of a new chapter. Weeks after Evelyn's arrest, life for Liam and Chloe began to transform. Richard had kept his word, helping them leave their old lives behind. Liam now lived in a small, cozy apartment funded by Richard. For the first time in years, he had a space to call his own. Each morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, bathing the room in warmth that felt almost unfamiliar. Liam had enrolled in school, a decision that initially filled him with nerves but quickly became a source of joy. Despite the challenges, he discovered a passion for learning. Books that once seemed like a luxury were now his gateway to new worlds, and every day brought opportunities he had never imagined. He excelled in his classes, his determination fueled by the promise of a brighter future. Chloe, inspired by Liam's transformation, decided to take a leap of her own. With Richard's support, she began training for a job in cybersecurity, her sharp instincts and quick thinking proving to be valuable assets. Though she was initially skeptical of leaving the streets behind, Chloe found herself adjusting to this new life. For the first time, she could envision a future where survival wasn't her only goal. As Liam sat in his apartment one quiet evening, he reflected on the twists and turns of his journey. The kindness of a stranger had set everything in motion, and his own courage to take a stand had carried him through the most challenging moments. Liam's thoughts often drifted to Richard, whose belief in him had ignited a spark of hope that refused to fade. One day, as he walked home from school, Liam noticed a young boy sitting on the curb, his face etched with the same desperation Liam once knew so well. Without hesitation, Liam approached him and offered the boy his lunch. The boy's wide-eyed gratitude reminded Liam of his own past, and in that moment, he vowed to continue paying kindness forward. "You're turning into quite the saint," Chloe teased later that evening as they shared dinner. But her smile revealed her admiration. "It's not about being a saint," Liam replied. "It's about remembering where we came from and helping others find their way too." Their laughter echoed in the room, the sound of two people who had faced darkness and come out stronger. Chloe's walls, once so impenetrable, were slowly coming down, and Liam's optimism was beginning to rub off on her. As the weeks turned into months, Liam and Chloe embraced their second chance at life. They remained close to Richard, who continued to guide and support them. Together, they built a future filled with promise, proving that even the hardest circumstances can be overcome with resilience, kindness, and a little faith. The boy who once stood invisible on the streets now shone brightly, a testament to the power of hope. Liam's journey had only just begun, but he was ready to face whatever lay ahead with strength and an open heart.